This video is brought to you by Imprint. Today, US presidential candidate Kamala Harris goes on a media blitz. Ukrainian President Zelenskyy presents his victory plan to Parliament, and Italy makes it illegal to have a baby abroad via surrogacy. From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Thursday the 17th of October 2024. With less than 3 weeks to go until the US election, Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris is ramping up her media appearances in an effort to win over independent voters and disenfranchised Republicans. According to national opinion polls, the race is still extremely tight, but Republican candidate Donald Trump seems to have closed the gap over the past week. Nate Silver's aggregator suggests that Harris's lead over Trump has narrowed very slightly from 3.1 points to 2.9 points. This now puts her at 49.4% compared to Trump's 46.5%. Anyway, on Wednesday night, Harris gave a sit-down interview on the conservative broadcaster Fox News, clashing with interviewer Bret Baier over several issues, including, most notably, immigration. Harris also used the interview to try and set herself apart from Biden, saying, "Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency, and like every new president that comes into office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas." Then, presumably referring to Biden's age, which has become one of the Republicans' main attack lines against Harris, Harris said she represents a new generation of leadership. However, when pressed by Baier on when she had noticed Biden's cognitive decline, Harris attempted to shift the conversation to Trump, saying Joe Biden is not on the ballot and Donald Trump is. She said that Trump was unfit to be president, giving the example of Trump's recent threat to mobilize the military against what he called the enemy from within. For its part, the Trump campaign described Harris's interview as a total unmitigated disaster and said she had abdicated responsibility for covering up Biden's cognitive decline. In a previous post on Truth Social, Trump had also criticized Fox News' decision to have Baier conduct the interview, calling him very soft to those on the cocktail circuit left, and saying Fox had grown so weak and soft on the Democrats. On top of this though, Harris has also appeared on CBS's 60 Minutes news show, done a talk show with The View, appeared on Call Her Daddy podcast, and spoken to radio host Charlemagne the God within the last week. She's also reportedly in talks to appear on the Joe Rogan podcast, which has a massive audience but is especially popular with young men. Numerous polls suggest that, as the liberal-conservative divide between young men and women grows, Trump could outperform among young men of all races. Harris's appearance would therefore allow her to make her case directly to young men. There's more on the way, but remember to subscribe and ring the bell for more daily briefing tomorrow. Plus, if you want to support the channel like Nabura's Beast, then consider joining the TLDR Daily Membership Program for just $1.99. The director of the UN's World Food Programme in Palestine has warned that food in northern Gaza will run out in a week and a half if Israel doesn't immediately allow a sharp increase in aid deliveries. According to UNRWA, the UN's Agency for Palestinian Refugees, the humanitarian condition inside northern Gaza have deteriorated even further in recent days, as Israel launched a massive new offensive in the area and prevented the UN from providing any aid to the north for 2 weeks. It comes as the US, Israel's closest ally, threatened to reduce its military support if Israel does not let in at least 350 aid trucks per day, starting from now. In a letter dated 13th of October, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin told their Israeli counterparts that the humanitarian situation in Gaza is increasingly dire, and that Israel must immediately reverse this downward trajectory. However, this isn't the first time that we've heard about the food crisis in Gaza. Reports that Israel has been intentionally blocking aid over the past year have also led to widespread international condemnation. And in August, Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich was criticized for suggesting that it might be acceptable to starve people in Gaza. He said, "No one in the world will allow us to starve 2 million people, even though it might be justified and moral in order to free the hostages." Moving to Ukraine now, where President Zelenskyy is presenting his victory plan to end the war with Russia. In his speech to Parliament, Zelenskyy claimed that his plan aims to strengthen Ukraine's position enough to end the war with Russia. The plan itself has 5 public elements, NATO leaders inviting Ukraine to join the military alliance, strengthening of Ukrainian defense forces against Russia, including getting permission from Western allies to use long-range weapons inside Russian territory, containing Russia via a so-called non-nuclear strategic deterrent package, joint protection by the US and EU of Ukraine's natural resources, and replacing some US troops stationed across Europe with Ukrainian soldiers, although this will only be implemented after the war. It's important to point out here that there were also 3 addendums, which remain secret and will only be shared with Ukraine's partners. Speaking further about the current state of the war, President Zelenskyy criticised the role of China, Iran and North Korea, describing them as a coalition of criminals. He also added that Russian President Vladimir Putin had gone mad and that he was bent on waging wars. Moving to Italy now, where on Wednesday the parliament made it illegal for couples to go abroad to have a baby via surrogacy. The bill, which went through the upper house, was proposed by Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's Brothers of Italy party and was passed by 84 votes to 58. The bill was already passed through the lower house last year. A surrogacy ban already exists in Italy and has existed since 2004. The new legislation simply extends this to couples who go to countries like the US or Canada for the procedure, where surrogacy is legal. Those found to have done this could be sent to prison for up to 2 years or fined up to €1 million. Speaking about the bill, Brothers of Italy Senator Lavina Menuni explained motherhood is absolutely unique. It absolutely cannot be surrogated, and it's the foundation of our civilization. We want to uproot the phenomenon of surrogacy tourism. Additionally, earlier this year, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni called surrogacy inhuman and explained that the practice treats children as supermarket products. In our final uplifting story today, we discuss support given to a queer bar in North Carolina following Hurricane Helene. Just before the hurricane hit in September, Brandon Davis and his husband Davey had opened a bar and coffee shop and had plans to host a range of events in the new premises. As a result of the hurricane, though, the building was flooded under 23 feet of water, which reached the 2nd floor. In order to try and rectify this, a friend of Brandon and Davey set up a GoFundMe, which to this day has raised $193,000. The money will be used not only to rebuild the bar and to compensate employees for their lost wages, but will also be donated to local volunteering efforts too. Speaking about this, Brandon explained, thousands and thousands of queer people from all over the world have been donating, and I don't have great words to explain how grateful I am. Fans of TLDR like you care about understanding the world around them. That's where today's sponsor Imprint comes into play. If you care about building a life of learning, then Imprint is the app for you. It's a new way to learn that turns your phone from an attention-sucking device to a tool for growth. You may have heard this before, but unless you've used the app, you likely haven't experienced something like this. That's because Imprint is beautifully illustrated and animated, creating a highly visual, bite-sized and interactive learning experience. It's the perfect antidote to a world where social media tries to keep us mindlessly dopamine scrolling day in and day out. Their library includes courses on topics like psychology, history, philosophy, finance, productivity, and many more, and quick reads you can consume in a single sitting. Since we last spoke to you about Imprint in September, I've done the philosophy course and am focusing on their course on the science of happiness. People study how to get in shape, how to eat right, and how to advance in their career. Understanding how humans are wired to be happy has been an interesting path to go down that I highly recommend to all of you. So make yourself feel better about your screen time, build a real habit of learning every day, and join the millions of people using Imprint. Plus, if you use the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen, the first 200 people will get 20% off an annual plan. Plus, they'll know that you came from us.